Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Metacast by Naavik, a podcast in which we explore the business and future of video games. I'm Aaron Bush, and today I'm excited to be joined by Ryan Wyatt. Ryan is the CEO of Polygon Studios, a venture partner at BITKRAFT, and of course, comes from a background of being the global head of gaming at YouTube, as well as leadership roles at Major League Gaming and Machinima. Ryan, as I mentioned before we started recording, I've admired you from a distance for quite some time, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. Welcome to the Metacast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here. Glad we finally got this thing on the books and can chat.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess before we dive into the details of anything specific, let's set the foundation. Could you let everyone know what exactly is Polygon Studios? What does the org do? What's its vision?
Yeah.
How does it tie into the broader ecosystem?
Yeah, it's a great question. We really try to have a little bit of like church and state, if you will, at Polygon. And so we've got kind of a product and engineering team that's focused on the protocol, right? And there's like a number of things I'm sure we'll touch on, right? Our ZK work, our POS chain, Supernuts, and that team, that's focused on those efforts. Polygon ID, there's a lot going on, right? Like we've got a lot of efforts, very intentionally so. And then you've got kind of the business side. And really, what does the business side do? Its pure focus is on the advancement of the protocol, right? And in these early days, a lot of people, there's a lot of conversation and partnerships and collaboration that needs to happen. And effectively, that's what Polygon Studios is. So I always find it the most simplified way to describe it is it's the business team for Polygon. And so what is the business team? It's everything from, finance and partnerships and BD and marketing. And there's a lot that kind of goes into it. But yeah, that's the studios team.
Awesome. And we'll dig into most of those specifics a bit more in the conversation.
Sure.
But something else I just wanted to hit on before doing that is you're actually pretty new to Polygon Studios. You joined earlier this year, and obviously a lot has changed over just a few months. But I'm curious, what has Polygon achieved since you started, and what sorts of changes have you made to help set the company up for more long-term success?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. Probably a number of areas we could chat about. So even taking a step back, I had always, so basically at YouTube, I ran the gaming vertical, and that was really working with game developers and content creators in gaming. And I love that, right? And I love that so much because you were at service to the creator economy. You're helping people think through how they can be content creators, how they can monetize, how they can grow their business, how they can get success. And then also what you're doing is you're like building the user audience. You're trying to really build the total addressable market and scale that out. And so there's some similarities there that got me interested in really going full time and leaving Google and going into Web3. And so I come over to Polygon, right? And I think, I loved Polygon for a variety of reasons. And not to like tease too much, I'm sure we'll want to talk about some of this stuff. But the TLDR was like, okay, I'm all in on Web3, love it, right? Now, going over to, I want to go somewhere, like I'm thinking about like the decision-making of going to Polygon too. And I think all of this matters in the context of the question. It's like, there's already risk in the space. That's the fun part about being in the space. Innovative, it's risky. We don't know what we don't know. It's this like blank canvas. That's why we're all here. It's exciting. We're like going to figure it all out. And we don't have the answers to all these questions. But one thing I wanted to bet on was where users and developers are already. And like Ethereum had that. And that's not to say like other alt ones won't find that one day. I'm sure they will. But you could just check that box off with Ethereum. And knowing it was like, okay, well, how are you scaling Ethereum? And you don't have like a lot of options that are big players in the space. And so I looked at Polygon, was really excited, particularly about the ZK acquisitions they had made in the previous year. And I thought, okay, like how can I leave an impact on Polygon? And I think the one thing that, I wanted to bring to the table was kind of like organizational excellence around scaling. Polygon had this incredible, scrappy team, didn't take no for an answer, like really achieved so much great things from a startup in 2017 to like raising $450 million led by Sequoia, right? I mean, incredible organization, incredible founders and teams. And when I came in February, it was kind of like 3,000, 4,000 apps, we're at 40,000, right? And so you could see the theme of we're going to have to scale this organization. We're all betting that Web3 is going to be successful. Our organization is definitely betting Ethereum is going to be a critical, if not the critical most core player into the future, right? And so we're like, we made these bets. Let's get ready to plan for a company that's going to be able to take on and And by that, like take on hundreds of thousands of dApps. All of the big Web 2 companies, big gaming companies, right? There's a lot that you have to do to set up the framework of that. I also think, so that was like a big thing. I love doing that. I have fun doing that. I like building that out. I have a very clear vision on that because props to Google. I think they're probably the best company in the world when it teaches you things. I mean, they will beat it into your head on learning how to scale efficiently, right? And so through this, I was at Google for almost 8 years, so learned that. And I was like, okay, you want to bring that over to Polygon, but you don't like, nobody wants to work at Polygon. Okay, you could just go work at Google, right? You want to work in the space because you're not Google, you're scrappy, you're the new wave, you're Web3, right? And so you kind of got to marry these two things of like the Web3 scrappy speed and the polish of doing and conducting business in Web 2. And you kind of want to find the middle ground of both. Like you don't want to operate on either side of those. I think either side of those, it would actually lead to failure long term. And so we're constantly finding that balancing act. But I would say starting to implement that within our organization on the business side has started to actually yield, I think, really good results for us. In particular, landing really large partnerships. Because I think we have a really good narrative where we can come to the table on a clear product vision into the future. It has some questions, and again, we'll talk about it, but like a clear vision of where we want to go and how we are going to support those partners. And so time and time again, I think far and away, we are the leader on, Web 2 adoption, big game adoption, right? All of this. And I think that's more of us finding a middle ground. And I think the last thing I'll say, which is really awesome, we have a good mix of backgrounds. And I mean like diversity in every sense of the word, where people live, gender, what their background is, what do they do? Like we have Web 2, we have Web 3, we have gaming, we have, fintech, like all these different backgrounds. And so being able to wrangle those people together around a unified vision and collaborate together has allowed for some of the, it has its pains as well, but has some of the coolest collaborations that, I've ever gotten to see in the space.
Awesome. That's a great answer. So let's dig into that a little bit more. I'm really curious how you compare leading Polygon Studios to YouTube gaming. You mentioned excellence in scaling. So I'm curious, maybe just in a bit more detail, like what's the same and different and like being able to carry that over to Web3. But also I'm just curious if there are any oddities of Web3 that you weren't expecting that you've been trying to get better at working with in the organization.
Yeah, but I have to even almost break that up into a couple. There's a lot even there. So the first part of like similarities between kind of YouTube or like YouTube Web 2, Google Web 2 versus kind of Polygon Web 3 world. I think the similarities have been interesting in the sense that there's this clear, like at Polygon, there's this clear focus on community and developers. It's like very, very clear to our company and that's like what we need to be focusing on. Like help support developers, build community. That's very true to YouTube, only swap out developers with creators, right? Content creators. Same ethos, content creators are the backbone of YouTube. You need to make sure that there's a vibrant community there. You're helping those content creators build sub communities. YouTube doesn't have this like overarching community. It's got like 2 billion people, 3 billion people. But what it does a really good job is like a content creator empowering them to create a community within it. And that's kind of what we're doing on our side with developers. And you have this broad Polygon community, but then they're operating and activating across individual NFT projects, dApps, so forth. Now, the thing that's really different about Web3 and like my role at Polygon is serving as kind of like a GM on this side. You're not spending a lot of time in, things like, legal side and people and kind of company structure and this like regulatory environment and all these different things. So these are kind of new things that you have to adopt as part of the process. The other thing with this space too is, there's a lot that always is changing, to say the least, right? I think like I find myself glued to Twitter sometimes because the space is so dynamic and I love that. It's fun about it. But it's dynamic is the key word there. I think, at YouTube, very clear what we have to do over the next like 5 years, right? And it's like you can kind of move towards that. Yes, things change in the markets and stuff, but nothing deviates so much. This space, I kind of like, there's a famous Bill Gates saying, and I won't even try to paraphrase it, but the spirit of the quote was like, you just actually always have to kind of operate a little scared to stay on top of what's happening in the space.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that, right? We never get complacent. We stay on top of where we need to be, we're fresh on our feet. We're really mindful. Our opinions change very dynamically as new information comes. And I think that's all good and necessary, but very different, not something I was doing before that I like doing now though.
Got it. Makes a lot of sense. Well, let's go ahead and zoom in on what's going on with Polygon right now. I'm curious, maybe to kick things off, what is having the most success on Polygon right now? And what types of projects are you expecting to be the most successful, more in like the near term, the midterm?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Okay, so what's going on at kind of Polygon? There's I think a number of really key things that we're focused on. One, we have a separate product from our POS chain, which is the core chain for Polygon, is our SuperNets product, which is allowing people to kind of what we call spin up their own dedicated chains. There's a lot of appetite around this and demand. We're excited to get this product out in market just to meet the demand for it. So that's a big focus of ours. The other is we announced our ZK EVM chain, which was really exciting, right? And that is, the testnet coming out of that, people starting to spin up dApps on it, really have fun, tinker with it. We'll learn a lot within the testnet environment. And that's a huge milestone for the organization. And honestly, some of the people, like the engineers that have worked on that product, this has been close to their heart for years, right? And so them coming, it's not the end, but just the idea that you can kind of like cut the ribbon and get a testnet environment up and like start to work and play in it. Super exciting, excited for all of them. We're going to learn a lot. What we learn from this will certainly inform like our product strategy long term, which I think a lot of people have been anticipating. It's no surprise that like the POS chain in its current environment is not our long bet, right? I think it's perfectly fine chain and does a great job with where Web3 is today. But if we're being honest, as you think forward looking 2, 3, 4 years out, the POS chain is not it, right? And so we're super excited that we have all of the answers to scaling that. But we got to kind of go through the motions. So that's a big thing that's happening now. The other is, look, we have to think about where it's all fine in these early days and in this year to kind of place bets and all over the place. Like we don't know what we don't know. I think we need to start having a little bit more like conviction around certain categories, right? There will always be the unknowns and we're going to have to kind of adapt. And that's that dynamic part I was talking about. But I do think it's like, okay, we've learned a lot. So where are we making our bets? We placed one on ZK. Good. That's going to pay out for us long term. Super excited. We've placed one on gaming. That one's starting to turn out well. Like we're excited, Midnight Society and Dr. Disrespect's game. And that had a great initial mint. And you've got kind of Horizon and so forth who just fundraised. Great project on Polygon, crypto unicorns. Like these things are starting to look good. And then this next one is loyalty and rewards, right? I'm kind of just generally at a high level think that you could do more with loyal and rewards. That I think loyalty and rewards that blockchain has kind of unique specific use cases that it can activate. And that was why it was fun to do the Starbucks partnership, right? I think that really shows their appetite, not like the largest rewards program in the world, Polygon again. And so I think that as actually a use case category is pretty interesting. And so these are if I had to say like the things that, are top of mind and most exciting, I think that's it. Also too, just the evolution and maturation of, the reality that the company is not a startup, right? The expectations are higher on Polygon. It can't, yes, we want to kind of operate with the moxie of having a chip on your shoulder, but you also have to balance that with like you've arrived and the expectations are high now. It's like you are not perpetually an underdog. At some point, you're perceived as one of the big dogs, and you've got to like carry yourself accordingly. And I think there's a lot that comes with that, both internally and externally, that we need to keep focusing on.
Gotcha. Yeah, thanks for breaking down some of those big bets that you're taking. How you're thinking about building out your tooling and infrastructure in new ways. Part of why I asked about like what projects are seeing success, like where do you expect it, is because obviously Naavik and most of our audience comes from like very much a gaming bent, but you guys at Polygon have also done a really phenomenal job, I think, locking down partnerships with companies like you mentioned, Starbucks, but also Meta, Stripe, Disney, DraftKings, etc. And so I'm curious. I mean, like where are you expecting Polygon to go? Like in the sense of like, it's not just for gaming. but like over the next year or so, like how like what is going to be active on Polygon? Like where is the excitement going to be in terms of like how people are going to be interacting with it in some ways that you're building for in the near term? So I'm curious about
Yeah.
that. So maybe we'll start there. That'll follow up.
I think high level, just to answer your question, people, it's that almost going back to that line of thinking I was talking about on how I made the decision to even like go work at Polygon, right? I think a lot of people are going to make a very similar decision in just the way that they operate from an activity standpoint, right? I want to be on Ethereum because there's like users and developer ecosystem there. There's liquidity there. There's like a lot of great stuff. And, I would say a lot of people are pretty bullish about the long-term future of Ethereum. And I gotta scale, right? Like no matter what, even like with the merge, even with sharding, as we scale over time, like you're gonna, no matter what, and this is at least, recognized, I think universally by everyone, you're gonna have to have a scaling solution. I just think Polygon will be, the primary scaling solution for Ethereum. There will be others, like, and it should. This is like the beauty of Web3 is this multi-chain world. There's a lot of optionality. You give people freedom of choice and autonomy. Like I dig that about the space. So I don't mean it in absolute terms, but like that's what we strive to be. Like we want to be the primary choice for when you want to scale on Ethereum, right? Like that's our goal. That's like what we're aiming to do. That's like why we wake up and get out of bed every single day. And I think there's, gaming is like a really important vessel to do that for a lot of reasons. I think digital ownership is at the heart of like Polygon's core ethos, and gaming can resonate with that. And even if gamers are reluctant right now, I think long term, people will come around with the idea of I'm spending billions of dollars in the games industry. I should have some additional or more freedom around these purchases than I do today. And so I love that. My background's in gaming too, so it's like it plays close, near and dear to my heart as well too. And I think as a gamer, when you come in, you want to be inside of the Polygon ecosystem and you want it to be like vibrant with users. You want to be able to like move around that environment really freely. And the way that you really do that, and by that I mean like just the chain, right? Kind of go and bounce back and forth, is you don't make it just gaming. It's like, let's just bring literally the world to Polygon. And I know it's hyperbole, sure. But like, that's like what we're doing. So why does Starbucks and Midnight Society both make sense for Polygon? It's because of that reason. And so long term, then we have a lot of users. They're just operating inside of Polygon, right? And inside of our ecosystem. And, we want to be this platform that kind of opens our arms to, again, all developers. And so you've got to cater not to being vertical specific. You got to cater to developer needs. And when there's a huge demand for gaming, then you've got to work towards making sure you support it.
Love it. Love the ambition. The follow up I was going to ask is how the heck have you built such an effective biz dev team so quickly? Because you have competitors out there, making moves, but you guys are working with several of the largest companies in the world. How have you been able to pull that off?
Yeah, I kind of touched on it briefly. Like, I think the team that's been at Polygon too, like the existing BD team that's been here even before my time, just people that are scrappy and passionate, and that takes you a really long way. And so many of those partnerships were forged by that kind of like tenacity that team has. And now we have that group, right? Like our Polygon OGs. And now we've been able to partner and bring on this year a bunch of great industry experts across traditional Web2, Facebook, Google, Amazon, all these folks they've dipped a foot into Web3, which is why they're ready to make the jump. And like we are bringing them over. And now you've been able to pull these people together. And literally it's just like great learning. And there's friction too, right? There's different opinions, thoughts, backgrounds. That's not a bad thing. I think when everybody has respect and admiration for each other, you can have those disagreements and different opinions. And it creates, better than anything, this amazing learning environment for everybody, right? And so education is kind of like bouncing back and forth in a really meaningful way. And I think that gives us a significant leg up. Like, I think it makes us very, very unique. And I don't think, and I really mean this just from like the type of DNA that the company has, not just like just that objectively, I think nobody even comes close. It has yielded us the results that we've had, but I do think we've got an interesting DNA and makeup within the organization.
Gotcha. All right, well, let's switch gears and talk about gaming, and maybe a good segue for this, since we just talked about, how how big your mission is, how effective you are working with other teams. I'd love for you just to make your case for why a game studio should pick Polygon as its choice of level two. What makes Polygon uniquely awesome? Is what's under discussed about it that should get more attention? Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of mentioned some of the more macro reasons already on why people should start to gravitate more towards Ethereum and Polygon. I think with gaming is there's a couple different things. One, I think with gaming, people really use it as like a blanket category. Like it's almost as like, oh, movies, right? Like gaming is so nuanced, so many different ways to make games, so many different avenues, types of games, categories, how you want to execute, right? And so you really then need people on the other side, as in like if you're the game developer, you really need people on the other side that understand like game development and appreciation of it. And then on top of it, making games is hard, right? It's very hard. And then you've now out like truly added on these kind of like free economies, which is very difficult and not ones that you can now truly meaningfully impact, right? And fine tune because they truly are. So that makes it, and that's hard, right? You know, tokenomics and all that is hard in its own right. And so if you're taking the perspective of a game developer in this question, you're like, what are you looking for? It goes back to, I think, first and foremost, I need users and I want a vibrant developer community to be surrounded by. Cool. Okay, now I need to make a decision. Is this product a product that I can build a quality game on? Yes. And I think, Polygon definitely does that now in POS and certainly addresses a lot of any of the issues long term with kind of the ZK rollups. For example, it's like if you want to, you're playing like an MMO and you pick up an NFT item, you can't wait 7 seconds for that to like show up in your inventory. It's a terrible game experience, right? And so the things that we're doing across the board, like remedy a situation like that, for example. And that's working with middleware providers. It's stuff that we do at a protocol level, so forth. But I think understanding this stuff comes from people that have been in game development, and we've got a bunch of people that have worked. Our COO was at EA for 20 years. We've got people that worked on variety of different Call of Duties and titles, right? So like we've got those folks in house who can think about it now, no longer as developing themselves, but with that kind of pedigree and background that understand it. And then you want that really strong relationship. And because we then also know Web 2, Web 3 really well, you as a game developer come in with Polygon, you're like, great, you have users, you've got great network effects, other people are here with developers, you understand game development, you understand what we're trying to do here, let's do it. Like, let's partner. This gives me the confidence, it takes all the risk out of the equation, or as much as you possibly can, and gives confidence for us to build. And I think that's what makes Polygon incredibly unique, right? It's why we don't do vertical specific. It's not like we're known as gaming being a big category, but we don't want to be just a gaming company, because I think gaming companies really need to be like, who else are you bringing in this ecosystem? Because rewards users are going to be really valuable coming over to the games platform and how everything is interacting within the ecosystem as well, too. So there's a lot of that goes into it, but I do think that makes us pretty unique. If I had to like pitch why why game developers continue to choose Polygon.
Nice. It makes a lot of sense. One minor thing that I just want to hit on for people who might not understand what it means. You mentioned ZK rollups a couple times and how Polygon works with them. Could you just unpack that a little bit for people who don't know what ZK rollups
I think the simplest way to kind of talk about, our zero knowledge rollups is it's speed, right? It's speed and some level of security, right? And so it's speed to Ethereum as like a checkpoint. And so really the way you should think about it is it's upgrading kind of our product capabilities to be faster and process more transactions per second and do so at quicker speeds. And so I think that's the main takeaway for what we're doing on the ZK side.
Right. Okay, cool. Well, let's go ahead and talk about what's going on in the market right now. So obviously there's a lot of experimentation, both good and bad in the blockchain gaming space. We've seen the evolution over the past year alone from play to earn to play and earn, play to own. Now free to own is a thing, and we'll see what's next. But I'm curious from your viewpoint as a platform provider that also provides venture funding to teams out there. What types of games or economic systems are you most excited about and bullish on? And maybe connected to that, like what do games teams really need to unlock that'll take this industry, in partnership with Polygon to the next level?
I think games that are going behind, like past kind of just like the pure NFT play and think of composability long term is pretty interesting, and like how games can kind of live in like perpetuity with people forking instances of them and working on them and like creating kind of communities around decision making trees. Like there's some interesting stuff happening there. I mean, I love like the basic concept too. I still do love of the idea of like I pay for this stuff, I should be able to own it. But there's things that are happening now that kind of are taking more advantage of beyond that, and like thinking a little bit more thoughtfully about end to end, what can I do if I actually build a game on chain, right? Outside of just like throwing the digital items on a marketplace, scarcity, and some of the stuff we've spoken about at length for, years now. So I think that's been pretty interesting too. I also have generally been pretty excited and optimistic that even with the downturn of the markets, there's still a lot of Web2 traditional players very enthusiastic about building on-chain experiences. I know it's a little bit of different, like a diverting a little bit of the question of like types of games, but I would say if I had Web2 games or like large Web2 games as like a category in this conversation, it's good to see that they're still like a part of this and moving this forward. And I say that because I think they will provide unique learnings as well too. And how some of this works. And yeah, I think like the on-ramps too. In general, there's been some pretty cool stuff as far as like reducing friction and on-ramps, like setting up a MetaMask account and all of that stuff in order to start, and then like, getting liquidity and how you get into a game. Like there still is a lot of UX UI challenges, but I think a lot of the games are doing really cool stuff. I called out Horizon already earlier, and they just, they just raised as well. Love Peter and that company and what they're doing and like how they think about sequence, like kind of their end-to-end experience is really interesting. So I don't know. I just feel that we're now in a stage where people are smart people that are well-funded are really tackling some of these issues that were pretty big barriers. And I think like onboarding friction is one of them. I strive for the day where like Polygon is so passively happening in the background that it's not exciting to even talk to me anymore, because like Polygon is just, it's like AWS or Google Cloud, like use an experience. You're like, is this on Google Cloud or AWS? Because like I'm only going to play Call of Duty if it's on AWS, right? And so I would like to see Polygon get to that point soon as well. And I think the improvement of like some of the on-ramps that are occurring is that's naturally happening, which is great, because obviously the focal point should be the great consumer experiences that are coming out of, being built on Polygon, not actually Polygon itself.
Right. Yeah, there's a ton of innovation happening out there right now, despite the winter in both Web3 companies. But as you mentioned, also Web2, which is really important. But despite all of that, there still is a lot of FUD around the industry, especially from mass market gamers around blockchain games. So I'm curious, how do you think Polygon and the rest of us can help contribute to better educating and winning over?
I don't know if that's even the answer, man, to be honest with you. Like I really don't think about it or spend much time caring about it. And I don't mean that in like an arrogant way. I think where their concern is and pushback on it, like a large majority of gamers, is really valid and warranted in the current state of the environment. And it is not their job to be forward thinking or to make bets on where things are going. They don't give a shit, and they shouldn't. It's like, is there a really cool game experience for me right now? Yes or no? The answer is largely no. Like, yeah, we're tinkering and some are coming out. It is not their job to care or align with us long term of like, listen, bro, you can own your digital items and sell them. Just put it on chain. NFTs, man, it's the future. Like, get out of here with that. People come around when great experiences are built. Full stop, right? And you don't need to explain it. I'll give you a great example of why I tuned this out. People shit on YouTube gaming in its first year. It's like Twitch. And then like, boom, over like 4 or 5 years, YouTube gaming is the biggest gaming platform in the world. People are like, Twitch sucks. Like, go to YouTube gaming. It's better rev share model, better for the creator. And you just see this nonstop. And so like, if you literally listen to like people, the large, population, you should hear from them. And what you should hear from them is, you have not given me a good experience for me to adopt yet. And that's all I hear. And I am like, fair. And so what do we need to do? Like, we need to solve for that. And there's a bunch of stuff that we need to do, and we're solving for it. It's just not happening today, right? And so the stuff that we're launching is like early versions of what will be really exciting future tech. You're already seeing it continue to iterate. You're actually even seeing games like Crypto Unicorns as well. They're iterating in real time, like doing cool stuff and innovating along the way. I love it. This is what it's all about. This is why we're here. They don't owe us anything, as in those that are skeptical and pessimistic about the Web3 blockchain games, whatever you want to say. And I feel good on the flip side of that is we as a space and industry are going to deliver some cool ass shit over the next 2 to 3 years that they'll be like, word, I was wrong and I like it now. And that happened all the way. People hated free to play, then they love it. It's a big model. People hated mobile games, then everybody's on it. It's a recurring theme. And so you can't, again, going back to the TLDR, like you can't be emotionally concerned about it because their points are valid and they don't have the vested interest in us long term. They are purchasers of the present, and there's not a lot to offer right now.
Fair. That's a refreshing take. And I guess related to all this, and since you mentioned YouTube gaming again, and yeah, congrats on all the success there. By the way, I've always admired your willingness and ability to engage with the community. Even back at YouTube. So I'm curious, what advice or lessons learned would you give around how a leader should best listen to its users?
I just think it is literally impossible to be a quality leader and not highly engage with the community. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. I don't know. I think I have seen so many leaders, like managers, if you will. Let's not call them leaders. I think leaders like a little bit more of an earned title. Managers that are responsible for significant parts of a business who are completely out of touch with what is happening on the ground. And it's sad, right? It's sad to see. It's almost like a waste of time. It's because it might not even be like an individual that has an issue. It's like they have now become disconnected with reality. And so it is like a part of the body dying, not to be too exaggerated, because it's like you have all this talent and experience that you've earned over the years, but you have now become disconnected with something that you are overseeing and responsible for. And so like that's sad, right? And so for me, in this space especially, things are moving constantly, right? And so you have to stay on top of it. You just have to. And look, like the only way any of this stuff works is like if community is fully leaned in and embracing it. So it can't just be fluff marketing at the core of it. It like genuinely needs to be the backbone and core of your business. Full stop. You don't have a protocol if nobody is on it, right? And so you've got to have this great community. You have to listen, you have to respond, but you also have to be able to filter it because you can't just like take all of your direction from the community or else you'll be sitting with them, in due time. So you've got to be able to process information, be empathetic, be honest with yourself, and like adjust accordingly. But dude, Twitter has been my number one tool for success on a personal level because of my ability to literally have short, quick conversations with folks publicly, DMs or otherwise. And it's made all the difference, to be honest with you. And I can't stress it enough how important it's been.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and shift gears and talk about the future of a bit about the industry, about Polygon. And let's go ahead and start with Polygon. So I guess I'll just ask the general question: what's next for Polygon Studios? I know you mentioned some things that the team is working on, but what's in the pipeline that you're excited about, or things that more people should be excited about that isn't getting enough attention?
Yeah, I can't share too much, but what I will say is there's like a couple key themes. One of them that we haven't touched on that I'm really excited about is we continue to improve. Well, I guess we briefly touched on it, but continue to improve like the onboarding and on-ramp experience into the ecosystem. So you will see some stuff that comes out from us that leans in. Because, I don't want us to just be like, oh yeah, Polygon's up for like closing Web 2 players. We're going to keep doing that. And that's not going to stop. But, we got to keep kind of reciprocating those efforts on the native Web3 side, because that's where all the magic is going to happen and allow for that like fluidity. And so real big focus on that, closing out the year into the new year. And then studios continue, like we'll have a lot of work to be done on supporting all of these, product upgrades, if you will, as we roll into like ZK tech and, our kind of new product stack that allows us to have like a layman's term, an upgraded chain that can move faster, right, and do more. So yeah, and supporting that is actually like it's all big undertaking, right? From how you show up with hackathons, how you do developer resources, how you go to market, all of these different things. So that's what you'll expect from studios over the next couple of months. A lot of work to do. Excited. We actually, we're all these conversations. 'Tis the season of these conversations too, right? As you think about next year and so forth. But yeah, we got some fun stuff to still share with the Polygon community these next couple months. Like we got more tricks in the bag still. Don't worry.
Awesome. Well, how about
Yeah.
this? Let's go even more radical with the question. Let's say it's, October of 2027, so 5 years from now. Any
Oof.
any bold predictions or bets on the future of Polygon Studios around blockchain gaming in general? What is the ultimate vision that you're building for over that period of
Dude,
time?
the ultimate vision, I don't know if it's 2027 or when the year is, but if I had to think about like the real one, or like the ultimate vision is this protocol just like drifts off and operates autonomously. You've got the ecosystem there, you've got the middleware there, you've got the developer community there, like you've got implementation partners, like it's just operating, right? You've got people, like you've got kind of governance running, like honestly, hopefully in 5 years, I'm like, it's like there's no longer this early like advancement part is no longer needed, right? I mean, it obviously is needed right now, but it's going, is the beauty. It's like why we're doing all of this, right? And I do think if you kind of like onboard the right partners to build the right things, that's the end. That's the end game, I don't know if 5 years is it, 3 years or 10 years, right? Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah.
But actually, I look at that, and so there's a lot of things that have to happen to get there. I think having these like, capital continuing to go into the space so that there's like the experiences that continue to be built, right? The developers can do that end-to-end experience. Users are able to so easily onboard into the ecosystem. Ton of stuff that needs to get done. But man, wouldn't that be beautiful? It's just like seeing something that is doesn't need kind of any outside assistance, right? It's like everything it needs is within the protocol.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. I just had to ask, even though I know it's a really hard question. Maybe
No, it's a good question, and it is like I feel like that's our North Star. Like that's what success looks like. There's that what happens, how we get there, who's building on it. But I think you've got now at that point you also have like dApps that are like worth hundreds of billions of dollars that are driving real unique consumer value, that are like unique blockchain app experiences, like in the games category and other categories. And I think you do see that as well too. And that's when I think you get to that transition point I was talking about, where people spend time talking about those companies. Like you're not talking about kind of Polygon as this like base layer of operation from a protocol perspective. You're talking about, the cool like new age apps that are being built that are, upending and uprooting kind of Web 2 and, different tech sectors.
Right. Obviously, thinking about the long term is really exciting, but not all teams probably at all times feel like they have the luxury of thinking that long term, just because they're currently struggling to make it through the so-called crypto winter right now, and are trying to find product market fit in a rapidly changing environment, or whatever their case may be. I'm curious, how is Polygon thinking about coming out stronger on the other side? And maybe the more interesting question here too is, like, how should other teams in this space be thinking about that too? How do you make the most of a downturn and come back stronger on the other end?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? Like, the reality, like Polygon, although we have to account very much for these market conditions because it's just a reality of things that impact businesses. We did fundraise almost $500 million in February, right? And so there's a lot of capital, and we are in we have a unique opportunity, and are fortunate enough that we have a game plan that allows us to be conservative and hunker down for years, right? Years. And I recognize that not everybody's in that same situation too, right? And so I think the reality is it's just tough decisions right now. In a bull market, everybody's smart, making decisions easy. Now, for these companies that might be well capitalized, it is make tough decisions, make them fast, rip band-aids off and go, right? It's tough because you never want to be rash in these decisions because they impact people, they impact, there's a lot of emotions in them. And it's unfortunate, and you'll never be able to take any of that stuff out in the process. It's just the human reality of it. Mm-hmm. But one thing you can't control is speed, and you do have to move fast on that stuff. And so iterate quick, make decisions quick, do all of that quickly.
Before we wrap up, I want to spend a couple moments talking to you from less the Polygon lens and more your investor lens. As I mentioned, you're
Sure.
a venture partner at BITKRAFT. You've done angel investing. You serve as a board member advisor. Um, I'm just curious. Apart from what all Polygon is working on, what else are you excited about in the games industry these days? What trends are you looking to invest in?
Yeah. So I think as an investor, one thing that like really excites. So I kind of have made, on a personal angel level, I've made like a lot of bets across the board. I think the one that I'm like personally really interested in, both on the venture partner side and angel side, is middleware, right? Like I think particularly with game developers, we kind of talked about it earlier, like some of the challenges of building specific games on chain that people haven't really thought through, of some of the back end service tooling that's going to need to be offered in order to actually launch and do some of these very creative visions around games is important. And so I have a really big interest right now in middleware. So like Third Web is an investment that I did as well, and I love that company. And I think they're solving for a lot of those problems. And there's other ones even that I haven't invested in that I love. Like Pragma is a great example as well. Who backend service, they're not really doing anything in blockchain games right now, but like I think inevitably they'll have like very good tooling suite to help people onboard. Forte, pretty cool with like what they were thinking about and like their thesis. So
Yeah,
I do feel that's going to be like a really critical part. And even Immutable, right, as a competitor, is why I invested in Immutable is interesting, right? Like gaming specific, vertical specific category. How are they going to help tackle unique challenges of onboarding games into the ecosystem? And so I keep an eye for that. I think the reason too I keep an eye on that is like I think people really underestimate the necessity and desire for tooling support in Web3 games. We just have focused on Web3 games and not like, okay, how are we going to do these the right way? And I think that
yeah.
question continues to come up more and more.
Awesome. Well, those are great answers. Final question for you, Ryan. Um, how can listeners who are interested in all that we've talked about today best follow along with Polygon Studios and also best follow along with you?
Yeah, so my Twitter's twitter.com/fwiz. Follow along there, and then twitter.com/Polygon Studios as well. And between that, you'll get plenty of Polygon information.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Ryan, for joining me today. I genuinely can't wait to watch to see where both you and Polygon go from here. Lots of exciting stuff. We're in a really exciting time. So thanks again for joining me today.
I love it. Thanks so much for having me. Good luck. Good luck with everything, and excited to talk again in the future.
Awesome. And to all of our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to give us a like, subscribe, 5 stars. It would mean a lot. And we'll put the links to all things Ryan and Polygon in the description below for you to check out. And of course, if you want to check out all the things that Naavik is up to too, we'll put some links down there as well. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.